The rain came down in sheets, soaking my shoes as I stood frozen on Bourbon Street, the neon lights blurring into a kaleidoscope of regret. I was 25 again. Somehow, my heart pounding with a second chance I didn't deserve. Eli was out there, alive, and I had 30 days to find him before the accident stole him again. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not in 1997. Not in this body. Not in New Orleans with its humid air and jazz that clawed at my soul. Last night, I'd gone to bed in 2025, 53 years old, haunted by the memory of Eli's smile fading in a hospital bed. I'd spent decades replaying the moment I let him walk away. The fight that broke us. The car crash that ended him. But when I woke up this morning, I was young again, standing in my old apartment. The calendar on the wall screaming July 1997. My hands shook as I touched my face in the mirror smooth, unlined. The face Eli had loved. I didn't know how or why, but I knew what I had to do. Find him. Fix us. Save him. The French Quarter pulsed around me, alive with tourists and street musicians. I shoved through the crowd, my heart racing. Eli worked at a dive bar on Decatur Street back then, pouring drinks and charming everyone with his crooked grin. I could still see Ithos' green eyes that held 1,000 secrets. The way his laugh could make the world feel safe. But we'd been reckless. Two kids in love who didn't know how to hold on. I'd pushed him away, scared of how much I needed him. Scared of what it meant to love another man in a world that didn't always understand. The bar was exactly as I remembered, dim lights, sticky floors, the smell of whiskey and cigarette smoke. My breath caught as I scanned the room. There he was, behind the counter, wiping a glass with a rag, his dark blonde hair falling into his eyes. Eli. Alive. My knees nearly buckled. I wanted to run to him, pull him close, beg for forgiveness. But I couldn't. Not yet. He didn't know minute this version of me. Not yet. Hey, stranger. He called out, his voice warm but cautious, like he sensed something off. You look like you've seen a ghost. I forced a smile, my throat tight. Something like that. I slid onto a bar stool, my hands trembling as I ordered a bourbon I didn't plan to drink. Eli moved with the same easy grace, chatting with customers, his laugh cutting through the noise. But I saw the shadows under his eyes, the weight he carried even back then. He'd been struggling family pressures, his dad's disapproval, the fear of being out in a city that could turn cruel. I hadn't seen it clearly at 25. I'd been too wrapped up in my own insecurities, my own fear of commitment. I thought we had time. We didn't. The first time around, we'd met at a Mardi Gras party, drunk on cheap beer and each other. It was fast, messy, perfect. Eli was a painter, always carrying a sketchbook, capturing the world in bold, chaotic lines. I was a law student, ambitious but terrified of my own heart. We fell hard, but I ruined it. A stupid fight about moving in together, about me not being ready to come out to my family. I told him I needed space. He gave it to me. 3 weeks later, he was gone, hit by a drunk driver on street, Charles Avenue. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Now, I had a month. I'd pieced it together from the calendar and my fractured memories. The accident would happen on August 15th, 1997. I didn't know if I could change fate, but I'd die trying. I watched Eli pour a drink, his fingers brushing mine as he slid the glass over. The touch sent a jolt through me, like the universe was daring me to get this right. You from around here? He asked, leaning on the counter, his eyes searching mine. Born and raised. I lied, my voice steady despite the storm inside. You. Same. But I'm thinking of getting out. This city, it's got a way of holding you too tight. I swallowed hard. He'd said that before. The first time around. Dreaming of New York or San Francisco. Places where he could be himself without looking over his shoulder. I hadn't listened then. I would now. New Orleans has its charms, I said, holding his gaze. Some things are worth staying for. He raised an eyebrow, a spark of curiosity in his eyes. That's so? Like what? I leaned closer, my heart hammering. People. The ones who make you feel alive. For a moment, he didn't move, just stared at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Then he laughed, soft and low, and turned to serve another customer. But I saw a flicker of interest, the crack in his walls. I had 30 days to break through them, to make him love me again, to keep him safe. The rain outside pounded harder, like the city itself was warning me, fate doesn't give second chances without a fight. The next night, I was back at the bar, my pulse racing like I was stepping into a battlefield. Eli didn't know me. Not really. But every glance he threw my way felt like a tether to the past. I had to build something new with him, something stronger than before, without scaring him off. The bar was quieter tonight. A Monday lull. Eli was sketching on a napkin between pouring drinks, his brow furrowed in concentration. I slid onto my usual stool, clutching a coffee to steady my nerves. I'd spent the day walking the quarter, retracing our old hauntscape du monde. The levee, the bookstore where we'd spent hours arguing about poetry. Every step felt like a ghost was walking beside me, whispering memories I couldn't afford to drown in. You're back, Eli said, glancing up from his sketch. It was a street scene, all sharp angles and soft shadows. What's your deal, man? You keep staring like you know me. I laughed, hoping it didn't sound as shaky as I felt. Maybe I just like the view. He smirked, but there was a wariness in his eyes. Smooth. You use that line a lot. Only when it's true. I shot back, leaning forward. I had to be careful, push too hard, and he'd shut down. But I couldn't help it. Being near him, hearing his voice, it was like oxygen after years of suffocating. He set the napkin aside and leaned on the counter, close enough that I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne. So, what's your story, mystery man? You got a name? James, I said, the name slipping out easily. It was my name, but it felt strange, like I was borrowing it from the kid I used to be. And you're Eli? Right. His eyes narrowed slightly. How'd you know that? I froze, cursing myself. I'd forgotten he didn't wear a name tag. Heard someone call it out last night. I said quickly, hoping he'd buy it. He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. Fair enough. So, James, what brings you to my bar 2 nights in a row? You a regular now. Maybe I just like the company, I said, holding his gaze. Or maybe I'm looking for something worth sticking around for. He chuckled, but there was a softness in it, like he wasn't entirely immune. You're trouble, aren't you? You have no idea, I said, my voice low. The words carried more weight than he could know. Over the next hour, we talked small things at first. Music, movies, the way the city smelled after a storm. I was careful, dropping hints of the Eli I knew without revealing too much. I mentioned a jazz band he loved, a dive bar he used to sneak into, Each time, his eyes lit up, like I was unlocking pieces of him he didn't expect a stranger to see. But I wasn't a stranger. Not really. I knew the way he tilted his head when he was thinking, the way his laugh caught when he was nervous. I knew he hated his dad's expectations, that he dreamed of painting full-time but was too scared to try. As the night wore on, the bar emptied out, leaving just us and the hum of a jukebox in the corner. Eli leaned closer, his guard slipping. "You're different, James. Most guys who come in here, they're just passing through. You feel like you're looking for something." "I am," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Something I lost a long time ago." He held my gaze, and for a moment, I thought he might ask what I meant. But then he pulled back, grabbing his sketchbook. "Show me something," he said, sliding it across the counter. "Draw something you've lost." My heart stuttered. I wasn't an artist. Not like him. But I took the pencil. My hand moved on instinct, sketching the outline of his face, those sharp cheekbones, the curve of his lips. I stopped halfway, embarrassed, but he grabbed the napkin before I could hide it. "Damn," he said, studying it. "That's intense. Who is this?" "Someone I don't want to lose again," I said, my voice raw. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw the spark of something: curiosity, maybe, or recognition. "You're weird, James," he said, but he was smiling. "I like weird." That night, as I walked back to my tiny apartment, the rain had stopped, but the air was heavy with possibility. I had 28 days left. I'd gotten through the door, gotten him to laugh, to talk. But fate was still out there, waiting, and I could feel its shadow creeping closer. By day 5, I was a fixture at Eli's bar, showing up every night like a moth to a flame. He started expecting me, saving my stool, tossing me a grin when I walked in. But every step closer to him felt like walking a tightrope, one wrong move, and I'd lose him. Tonight, the bar was packed, a live band filling the air with brassy notes. Eli was in his element, slinging drinks, joking with the regulars. I watched him, memorizing every detail: the way his hands moved, quick and sure, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. I was falling for him all over again, and it hurt like hell, knowing what was coming if I failed. I'd started piecing together a plan. The accident happened on Street Charles Avenue, late at night, after Eli left a friend's party. I didn't know the exact details. My memories from 1997 were hazy, blurred by youth and grief. But I knew the date, the place, the drunk driver who'd taken him. If I could keep Eli away from that party, maybe I could change things. But first, I had to make him trust me, make him want to stay with me that night. "You're staring again," Eli said, sliding me a beer I hadn't ordered. "What's going on in that head of yours?" "Just thinking you're pretty good at this," I said, gesturing to the bar. "Ever think about doing something else? Like painting?" His face shifted, a mix of surprise and caution. "You sound like you've been talking to my therapist. How do you know I paint?" "Lucky guess," I said, cursing myself again. "You've got that artist vibe. Ever show your work?" He shrugged, but I saw the spark in his eyes. "Not really. My dad thinks it's a waste of time. Wants me to go into business. Like him." "Screw that," I said, leaning forward. "You should do what makes you feel alive." He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "You say that like it's easy." "It's not. I admitted. But some things are worth fighting for. He didn't respond, just nodded and turned to serve another customer. But I saw the way his shoulders relaxed, like my words had hit something deep. I was getting through, slowly, but the clock was ticking. Later that night, he invited me to stick around after closing. We ended up on the fire escape, sharing a cigarette under the stars. The city hummed below us, alive and restless. Eli talked about his dreams painting in a big city, living somewhere he could be himself. I listened, hanging on every word, knowing I'd heard these dreams before but hadn't really heard them. My dad caught me with a guy once. He said suddenly, his voice low. Kicked me out for a week. Said I was a disappointment. My chest tightened. I remembered that story, the way it had broken him. He's wrong, I said fiercely. You're not a disappointment. You're incredible. He looked at me, his eyes soft but guarded. You don't even know me, James. I want to, I said, and the truth of it burned. If you'll let me. For a moment, he didn't speak, just looked out at the city. Then he handed me the cigarette, his fingers brushing mine. You're something else, he said, almost to himself. We stayed there until dawn, talking about nothing and everything. I told him stories from my past, careful to keep them vague, but every word was a bridge between us. When I left, he walked me to the street, his hand lingering on my arm. Come back tomorrow, he said. Not a question. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, my heart soaring. As I walked away, the weight of the future pressed down on me. I had 25 days to make him love me, to keep him safe. I was gaining ground, but fate was a hunter, and I could feel it closing in. A week in, and I was living for the moments with Eli. Every night at the bar, every stolen conversation, felt like a victory. But the calendar on my wall was a constant reminder. August 15th was coming, and I was running out of time. Eli was opening up, bit by bit. He'd started sharing more stories about his childhood, his mom's gumbo recipe, the way he'd sneak into galleries to sketch the paintings. I soaked it all in, falling deeper into the man I'd lost once before. But I was careful, too, keeping my knowledge of him hidden, building something new instead of leaning on the past. Tonight, he'd asked me to meet him outside the bar, not inside. When I got there, he was leaning against a lamppost, his sketchbook tucked under his arm. Thought we could do something different, he said, a shy grin tugging at his lips. You up for a walk? Always, I said, my heart racing. This was new, something we hadn't done the first time around. A chance to rewrite our story. We wandered through the quarter, the air thick with the scent of magnolias and river mud. Eli led me to a quiet courtyard, hidden behind an old church, where fairy lights strung through the trees cast a soft glow. He spread out a blanket and pulled out his sketchbook, his movements nervous but deliberate. Wanted to show you something, he said, flipping to a page. It was a sketch of me, rough but unmistakable me eyes. My jaw, the way I leaned forward when I talked to him. Drew it last night. Couldn't get you out of my head. My breath caught. Eli, this is amazing. He ducked his head, embarrassed. It's just a sketch. But you've been showing up a lot, James. In here. He tapped the sketchbook, then his chest. I don't know what it is about you. I wanted to tell him everything, how I'd loved him, lost him, how I'd woken up in 1997 with his name carved into my soul. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I reached for his hand, my fingers brushing his. "I feel it too," I said, my voice rough. "Like I've known you forever." He didn't pull away, just looked at me, his eyes searching. Then he leaned in, slow, like he was testing the waters. Our lips met, soft at first, then hungry, like we'd both been starving for this. It was everything I remembered and more: his warmth, his taste, the way he sighed against me. For a moment, the world was just us, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could outrun fate. But when we pulled apart, his eyes were troubled. "This is a lot," he said, his voice shaky. "I don't do this, James. Not with guys I barely know." "You know me," I said, too quickly, and he frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I backpedaled, my heart pounding. "Just that. This feels right. Doesn't it?" He studied me, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, it does." We stayed in the courtyard until midnight, talking, kissing, laughing. But as we walked back to the quarter, his hand in mine, I felt the weight of the future again. I had 23 days to keep him safe, to make him mine. And I was starting to realize that love alone might not be enough. 2 weeks in, and Eli was becoming my world again. We'd spent every night together, stealing moments in quiet corners of the city, building something fragile but real. But the closer we got, the more I felt the shadow of August 15th looming. Tonight, we were at his apartment, a tiny studio above a bakery in the Marigny. The walls were covered in his paintings, bold, chaotic bursts of color that made my chest ache. We were sprawled on his couch, a jazz record spinning softly, his head resting on my shoulder. It felt like a dream, but I couldn't shake the fear that it would shatter. "You ever feel like you're running out of time?" Eli asked, his voice quiet. My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" He shrugged, staring at the ceiling. "Like something's coming, and you're not ready." "I don't know. Maybe it's just this city." I wanted to tell him he was right, that I knew exactly what was coming. Instead, I pulled him closer, my lips brushing his forehead. "We've got time," I lied. "We'll figure it out." But I was running out of ideas. I tried to find out more about the accident, scouring old newspapers at the library, but the details were vague. A drunk driver, a late-night crash, no witnesses. I'd even walked Charles Avenue, trying to map out the spot, but it was like chasing a ghost. All I knew was that Eli would be at a party that night, and I had to keep him away. The next day, I convinced him to skip work and spend the day with me. We took a streetcar to Audubon Park, sprawling under an oak tree with a picnic I'd packed. He laughed as I fed him beignet, powdered sugar dusting his lips. For a moment, I could pretend we were just two guys in love. No ticking clock, no fate waiting to strike. "You're good at this," he said, leaning back on his elbows, making me feel like the world's not so heavy. "You make it easy," I said, my voice catching. I wanted to freeze this moment, keep him here forever. But as the sun set, he got a call. His friend Marcus, inviting him to a party on August 15th. My blood went cold. I tried to play it cool, suggesting we do something else that night. But Eli brushed it off. "It's just a party," he said, laughing. "You can come if you want." I forced a smile, but inside, I was screaming. I had 16 days to change his mind, to keep him safe. And I was starting to realize that fate wasn't just a date on a calendar, it was every choice, every moment, pulling us toward that night. With 10 days left, panic was setting in. Eli and I were closer than ever, nights tangled in his sheets. Mornings stealing kisses over coffee, but the party was still on his calendar. A ticking bomb I couldn't defuse. I tried everything. Subtle hints about skipping the party, suggesting a road trip, even faking a stomach bug to keep him with me. But Eli was stubborn, and Marcus was his best friend. It's tradition, he'd said, brushing off my concerns. I couldn't tell him the truth, not without sounding crazy, so I focused on building our connection, hoping love would be enough to keep him safe. Tonight, we were at a jazz club in the quarter, the music wrapping around us like a warm blanket. Eli's hand was on my knee, his eyes bright as he watched the band. I wanted to stay in this moment, but my mind kept racing. I'd started following him when he went out alone, watching for the car that would take him, but it was impossible to know which one it was. The city was full of danger, and I couldn't protect him from it all. "You're quiet tonight," Eli said, nudging me. "What's up?" "Just thinking about you," I said, forcing a smile. "How lucky I am." He grinned, leaning in to kiss me. "You're such a sap." But as we left the club, he got a text from Marcus, confirming the party details. My stomach twisted. I grabbed his hand, pulling him into an alley, desperate to keep him with me. "Stay with me that night," I said, my voice urgent. "We could do something special. Just us." He frowned, sensing my intensity. "What's with you and this party?" "It's just a few drinks, James." "It's not about the party," I said, my voice breaking. "It's about you. I can't lose you." He stared at me, confusion turning to concern. "You're freaking me out. What's going on?" I wanted to tell him everything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I kissed him, pouring every ounce of my fear and love into it. He kissed me back, but when we pulled apart, his eyes were guarded. "You're hiding something," he said. "I can feel it." I shook my head, my throat tight. I need you to be safe." He didn't push, but the distance between us grew. I had 10 days to fix this, to make him trust me, to keep him alive. And I was running out of moves. August 14th. 1 day left. I was a wreck, barely sleeping, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Eli and I were still together, but he'd grown quieter, sensing my desperation without understanding it. I'd pushed too hard, and now I was losing him. I'd spent the day planning. If I couldn't stop him from going to the party, I'd go with him, stay by his side, keep him off street. Charles Avenue. I'd even mapped out alternate routes home, safe paths through the city. But fate felt like a living thing, tightening its grip. That night, I met Eli at his apartment. He was dressed for the party, his green eyes bright but distant. "You're coming, right?" he asked, and I nodded, relief flooding me. The party was in a warehouse loft, packed with artists and musicians, the air thick with smoke and laughter. Eli moved through the crowd, his charm lighting up the room. I stayed close, my heart pounding every time he stepped away. I watched the clock, counting down the hours until midnight, when the accident would happen. As the night wore on, Eli got drunker, his laughter louder, his touches looser. I tried to keep him grounded, but he was slipping away, caught up in the energy of the crowd. Then Marcus pulled him aside, whispering something about a late-night drive to the river. My blood ran cold. Eli, let's go home, I said, grabbing his arm. Now. He pulled back, frowning. What's your deal? James, you've been acting weird all week. I need you to stay with me, I said, my voice cracking. Please. He stared at me, his eyes searching. For a moment, I thought he'd listen. But then Marcus called his name, and he turned away. I'll be back, he said, disappearing into the crowd. I chased after him, my heart pounding. But he was already outside, climbing into Marcus's car. I shouted his name, but the engine roared, and they were gone. I stood there, frozen, the world collapsing around me. I'd failed. Again. I ran. My lungs burned as I sprinted down street. Charles Avenue. The city a blur of lights and shadows. I didn't know if I could catch them, but I had to try. Eli was out there, heading toward his death, and I was the only one who could stop it. The street was alive with late-night traffic, cars weaving through the rain-slicked roads. I scanned everyone, searching for Marcus's beat-up sedan. My phone was useless, no GPS. No way to track them. All I had was memory and desperation. I remembered the crash happened near a gas station, a block past the streetcar line. I pushed harder, my shoes slipping on the wet pavement. Then I saw it Marcus's car, parked at a red light. Eli's silhouette in the passenger seat. I shouted his name, my voice lost in the city's noise. The light turned green, and they started moving. I ran faster, my chest heaving, tears mixing with the rain. I couldn't lose him again. By some miracle, I reached the car as it slowed at the next intersection. I banged on the window, startling Marcus. Eli's eyes widened as he saw me, his face pale in the streetlight. Get out, I yelled, yanking the door open. Eli, now. What the hell? James. Marcus snapped, but Eli was already moving, stumbling out onto the sidewalk. I grabbed his arm, pulling him away from the car just as a pickup truck barreled through the intersection, its headlights blinding. It swerved, missing Marcus's car by inches, then screeched to a halt. Eli stared at me, his breath ragged. How did you? I told you, I said, my voice breaking. I can't lose you. Marcus was shouting, but I didn't care. I pulled Eli into my arms, holding him tight, the rain soaking us both. He didn't pull away, just clung to me, his body shaking. For the first time, I felt like I'd won against fate, against time, against my own mistakes. We walked back to his apartment, silent, the weight of what had happened sinking in. When we got there, he turned to me, his eyes full of questions. You knew, he said, his voice low. How? I took a deep breath, the truth spilling out. I told him everything. 1997. The accident. The life I'd lived without him. The impossible second chance. He listened, his face unreadable. But he didn't pull away. That's why you've been so weird, he said finally, a small smile breaking through. You're trying to save me. I'm trying to love you, I corrected, my voice raw. And I'm not letting you go this time. He kissed me then, slow and deep, like he was sealing a promise. We spent the night wrapped in each other, the city humming outside, fate finally silent. I didn't know if I'd changed the future or just delayed it. But for now, Eli was here, alive, mine. And that was enough. Years later, We'd build a life together, paintings on the walls. Jazz in the air. Love that outlasted time. New Orleans held us close. Its heartbeat ours. A reminder that some things are worth fighting for. No matter the odds.